Until recently, the idea that electric vehicles, EVs, would dominate the majority of vehicles on the road seemed like a distant prospect. However, China's rapid progress has pushed this future right to our doorstep. The European Union, EU, is now proposing a new tool to limit trade with third countries suspected of bypassing sanctions. Meanwhile, the EU has paused efforts to secure approval for a significant investment deal with China, due to tensions surrounding sanctions related to Beijing's treatment of marginalized communities. This shift in EU-China relations serves as a clear warning of the challenges that can arise when Europe attempts to impose economic measures on the world's manufacturing giant. The EU believes that imposing tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China will help curb its influence. Yet China has not backed down. In a powerful move, Beijing cancelled 150,000 EV orders as a clear assertion of its position. This escalating conflict reveals a larger battle for control over global trade, sustainability, and energy. In this video, we'll analyze China's actions to understand the underlying forces at play. But before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with all of our latest content. Now let's get started. This isn't just a trade war. It's a geopolitical drama in which the EU is fighting to protect its already struggling automotive industry. The EU's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs is presented as a move to ensure fair competition. But is this really about fairness? Or is it a reaction driven by fear of China's overwhelming advantage in the industry? China's EV sector is far ahead of Europe, and this disparity is causing concern. The automotive sector is now the focal point, with the United States and the EU accusing China of unfairly supporting its EV industry. An anti-subsidy investigation led by the European Commission is expected to conclude soon, with Brussels likely to respond with countermeasures. In the meantime, China remains confident about its domestic EV market. EV sales in China now account for over 30% of annual car sales, a significant achievement that highlights the effectiveness of its industrial strategy. As the EU increases its pressure, China is quick to retaliate. The cancellation of 150,000 EV orders from Europe is not just a direct response, but a strategic strike at Europe's economy, sending shockwaves through the region. The consequences of this move have put the EU on edge, raising important questions about the future of its green transition strategy, which is central to its economic future. This conflict extends far beyond the automotive industry. It's a battle for control over the future of global trade, industrial dominance, and Europe's place in a rapidly changing world. The EU's official rationale for imposing tariffs on Chinese EVs is to protect fair competition. However, this issue is more complex. The EU accuses Chinese EV manufacturers of dumping products below market prices, thanks to massive government subsidies. At first glance, this argument seems logical, but the real issue lies deeper. China has long considered electric vehicles as a key part of its national development strategy. Unlike Europe's defensive stance, China's subsidies are part of a long-term vision. The Chinese government has invested billions of dollars into research, development, infrastructure, and battery technology to establish leadership in the industry. For China, EVs are more than just a mode of transportation. They represent the future of sustainability, mobility, and global trade leadership. This strategic vision is one of the key reasons why Europe finds itself trailing behind. While European automakers are still trying to transition to EV production, Chinese companies have already achieved competitive superiority in both quality and cost. This disparity is the EU's biggest challenge, and imposing tariffs is a temporary solution to protect a vulnerable industry rather than addressing the core issue. The EV battle between the EU and China is about much more than market share. It's a struggle over who sets the rules for global trade. The outcome will shape not only the future of the automotive industry, but also the future of the European economy in the context of globalization. Europe is facing growing challenges in maintaining its competitive edge in the automotive industry. While China continues to refine its supply chain and optimize EV manufacturing, European automakers remain heavily invested in traditional internal combustion engines, a technology that's becoming obsolete. Currently, producing an EV in Europe is up to 40% more expensive than in China due to fragmented supply chains, higher labor costs, and outdated infrastructure. This situation creates a paradox. While the EU accuses China of unfair subsidies, it overlooks its own long history of subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. European fossil fuel companies once received billions of dollars in subsidies to stay competitive, but now that industry is in decline. The EU's tariffs on Chinese EV imports are not just about fairness. They reflect fears of losing dominance and falling behind a formidable competitor. This move has triggered a strong reaction from China, including the cancellation of 150,000 EV orders destined for Europe. The economic impact of these cancellations is enormous, particularly for countries like Spain, where the automotive sector accounts for 10% of GDP and employs hundreds of thousands of people. Spain's automotive industry is heavily reliant on imported components from China, and rising production costs and shrinking profits are already taking a toll. This issue is spreading across Europe, causing disruptions in supply chains, escalating costs, and intensifying competition for the remaining orders. In this context, European consumers are facing a growing disadvantage. Reduced imports of electric vehicles, EVs, are driving up retail prices, making EVs less appealing and harder to access. This is particularly problematic as Europe urgently needs to accelerate EV adoption to meet its climate goals. A vicious cycle is forming. Rising prices dampen demand, and the automotive industry struggles to transition to EV production. Beyond the economic impact, political tensions are also emerging. Countries like Italy and Greece, which have faced long-standing economic challenges, are opposing the EU's tariff policies. These nations argue that the EU's protectionist measures primarily benefit industries in Northern Europe, while harming the rest of the bloc. This has deepened internal divisions within the EU, leaving Europe in an increasingly difficult position. These developments raise critical questions about the future of Europe's automotive sector. As China strengthens its leadership in the EV market, Europe must act quickly to find solutions, not only to remain competitive, but also to ensure internal unity and stability. Without doing so, the gap between Europe and its global competitors, particularly China, will continue to grow, with far-reaching consequences, both economically and politically. China's actions go beyond simply canceling orders from Europe. They represent a strategic assault on the region's economic cohesion. However, the bigger question is whether Europe can recover from this economic shock, or whether it has underestimated its dependence on Chinese imports. To find answers, we must first understand why Chinese EVs have dominated the market from the start. Has China's exceptional progress in EV technology made Europe entirely uncompetitive? The dominance of Chinese EVs is no accident. It's the result of a blend of cutting-edge technology, meticulous economic strategies, and a strong focus on user experience. Chinese EVs are not only more affordable but also superior in quality. Companies like BYD and NIO continue to push the limits of EV technology, utilizing advanced batteries and integrating artificial intelligence, AI, features that provide experiences straight out of science fiction. At the heart of China's dominance lies its revolutionary battery technology. Companies like KITL, the world's largest battery manufacturer, have developed high-density, durable batteries that can be mass-produced. As a result, Chinese EVs offer performance advantages that European manufacturers struggle to match. But China's strategy doesn't end at battery technology. The country employs a vertically integrated model, controlling every step from raw material extraction to final assembly. This approach reduces costs, ensures product quality, and speeds up production timelines. Meanwhile, European automakers rely on fragmented supply chains across multiple countries, driving up costs and causing production delays. Beyond technological superiority, Chinese EVs captivate consumers with modern designs, smart features, and attractive prices, especially appealing to younger, tech-savvy buyers. In contrast, European manufacturers remain burdened by high costs and outdated production methods, which make it hard to compete. But the competition goes beyond the vehicles themselves. There's a broader race for the future. While Europe hesitates, China has forged ahead with a strategic vision that places EVs at the center of its green transition. This raises the crucial question: can Europe meet its ambitious environmental goals without relying on affordable Chinese EV imports? Europe has committed to being a global leader in combating climate change, but achieving these green objectives depends heavily on making EVs accessible to the public. Chinese imports play a vital role in this, offering consumers lower prices. Meanwhile, Europe's domestic EV offerings still struggle to match this affordability. Europe's greatest challenge, therefore, is not only recovering from this economic shock, but also maintaining its commitment to a green transition amidst its reliance on Chinese technology and supply chains. In the short term, Europe must enhance domestic capabilities and increase investment in EV technology to avoid falling behind in the race to shape the future. Low-cost Chinese EVs have already become a significant driving force in reducing car ownership costs, making sustainable transportation a reality for millions of Europeans. With significantly lower prices than domestic models, Chinese EVs help promote eco-friendly transportation and accelerate the green transition across Europe. However, recent EU moves to impose tariffs and restrict imports threaten to undermine these benefits. The consequences could include higher EV prices, pushing consumers to delay purchases, slowing the adoption of green technologies, and hindering efforts to reduce emissions across the continent. Electric vehicles are more than just products. They are the foundation of Europe's broader green strategy. From integrating renewable energy to building smart cities, a steady supply of affordable EV models is crucial for the growth of this entire ecosystem. Yet if that supply is threatened, Europe's entire value chain could face disruption. EU tariffs, which aim to protect domestic industries, may backfire, as they risk hindering environmental efforts and leaving Europe in a difficult position. As Bloomberg points out, this could become a lose-lose scenario where Europe sacrifices both its economy and its climate ambitions. In contrast to Europe's struggles, China is using the opportunity to strengthen its position in the global green race through massive investments in EVs, renewable energy, and battery recycling. China is not only meeting market demand but also setting new technological standards and shaping the future of the green industry. Notably, China has overcome trade barriers to build a sustainable ecosystem independent of the European market. Meanwhile, EU strategies seem ineffective in protecting both environmental goals and global competitiveness. One of China's key moves has been to deepen its ties with Russia, forming a strategic alliance that is reshaping the geopolitical landscape. As Europe isolates China, Beijing strengthens its relationship with Moscow. Sales of Chinese cars in Russia have surged by 60%, quickly filling the void left by Western manufacturers. But this partnership extends beyond the automotive sector. Through initiatives like the Belt and Road, China is establishing new trade routes that bypass Europe entirely, reinforcing economic ties with Russia and Central Asia. This is more than just a trade strategy. It's a geopolitical maneuver, placing Europe at a disadvantage in global trade negotiations. As the Russia-China alliance grows, Europe's ability to influence global markets and policies weakens. Once the center of global negotiations, Europe now risks being sidelined. China's new trade initiatives not only reduce dependence on European markets, but also create an independent economic network that challenges the EU's leadership. A clear example of this power shift is China's decision to cancel 150,000 EV orders from Europe, signaling that Beijing is not just a competitor, but a global leader in production and innovation. The EU's tariff strategy, rather than protecting domestic industries, has exposed Europe's vulnerabilities. A delayed green transition, increased economic instability, and a strengthening Russia-China alliance. In this context, the pressing question for Europe is not just whether it can compete with China, but whether the EU can survive in a world where Beijing is rewriting the rules. China isn't merely preparing for the future, it is leading and shaping it. Meanwhile, Europe struggles to maintain its footing. Without timely and strategic changes, the EU risks being left behind in the global race. It's time for Europe to wake up and act decisively to face a new reality where China is relentlessly solidifying its position as a global powerhouse. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content and want to learn more, please like the video and subscribe to the Ancient Craft channel to stay updated on our latest videos. Don't forget to share your thoughts below so we can discuss further. See you in the next exploration.